Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I'll be taking a look at the second story in this Jodorowsky library volume. This is the story PIETROLINO illustrated by Olivier Boiscommun, I think is how the name would be pronounced. This is a bit of a different book for Jodorowsky in all the ones that I've read. It has less of that grand mythic like architecture that I'm used to in his work and focuses a little bit smaller on a single person. It's also set during World War II, and so you have like the Nazi occupation of Europe playing out, and I think Pietro, and then the fascist. I think this is maybe set in Italy. I'm not sure. The Pietrolino sounds Italian to me. But anyways, you have a mime, and we know anyone who's any kind of fan of Jodorowsky probably has done any casual reading about him knows that he's very into mime as well. And so this one feels like a more personal story to him, the story of a mime overcoming. And you see here that he is being arrested by the Gestapo, or I don't know, maybe this is fascist Italy. I'm not sure. Not enough of a European historian, but is arrested and then has his hands damaged. So he can no longer mime because he's had his hands broken, and he uses his hands as part of the miming. Then you meet his little sidekick here, Simio. This is someone that is taken with him, and they're put into the labor camp. Petrolino obviously has a hard time in the labor camp as well because he can't use his hands. Hard to do labor. After they get out, they develop this routine where Petrolino does this boxing routine because he can hide his hands in the gloves and use the rest of his mime skills. So he's doing that on the streets and being fairly successful, and runs into this woman, Alma, who he sees doing mime as well, who has like all the talent in the world. So he kind of falls in love with her and then takes her under his wing, is both her lover, I believe, and like her partner. They found their own little circle, Le Petit Cirque. They're doing pretty well with that, it seems like, until the big circus comes to town, and that creates, like some of the drama for the book. There's a fun trick in the writing here where the narrator's going on and on about like Pietrolino and Alma, and they're going into they're having a romantic moment, let's say, and he's like wiping her face down and all of this, and then it says that's all Pietro told me on the subject. What happened next in the caravan, well, no one would ever truly know. So they're suggesting that there was like a sexual encounter that would be inappropriate to share. But then it keeps going, and the audience does know. So I like that unreliable narrator trick where like the narrator's cut off, but we're not. The camera's still in there. And so you can see a little bit of the interaction that they actually did have, which was totally sweet and completely non-sexual. This is just a fun little trick, narrative trick in the book. Unfortunately for Pietrolino, Alma starts to actually fall in love with the acrobat on the. Unfortunately for Pietrolino, Alma starts to fall in love with the acrobat. She gets involved in the acrobat performance, and so you have this like poor guy, he can't use his hands, like the love of his life isn't really actually a love of his life. So he's very much struggling. He's struggling to assimilate into the bigger theater that is challenging them, but is able to do so, and is able to create an act and come back and become very famous again. You can see some of the really awesome art in here as well. It's a more cartoony style than I'm used to with Jodorowsky, but all like very hand painted watercolors and super detailed. A lot of nice cartooning, a lot of cool like shape play in the character designs. And then at the end of the story, you get this really lovely sequence here with the set of images that's really stunning to me, where the Pietrolino character basically gets his come up. He gets to become himself. And then through all the hardships that Pietrolino goes through, like as always with the Jodorowsky book, there's like a transformative moment. There's a miracle, and he's able to get his hands back. And then once he's able to get his hands back, he can fly again. And so here there's this like kind of metaphorical, surreal ending sequence where they show he's got his hands, he's got his power back, and he's able to take off. He's able to be himself again. And just the way that the art is handled in this sequence, I think really conveys like how ecstatic he would be. I particularly like the shift from these like psychedelic bands back here showing the tent to showing the tent right here. Switching the perspective on that, I think, is really pretty. And then switching from the warm to the cool is a very impactful piece as a decision to make as well. And tying it together with the golds, I think there's a lot going on artistically on this 2-page spread that's really, really nice and worth complimenting. So I like this quite a bit better, actually. The art style, even though like the love and craft that went into it, there's a strange like rubberiness to the figures that's not totally my thing. Like just some of the emotions on the arms and stuff are a little stiff to me. But in terms of like the story, I think this is one of my favorite Jodorowsky stories. I don't know, as I go through the library and reread a bunch of them, we'll have to see. But this one feels more hopeful and like a little bit kinder to its main character in the end, even though it puts him through a lot. It just seems like we're starting with someone who's not like a scumbag or a vile person, which is a nice breath of fresh air for a Jodorowsky story. But then, yeah, some really beautiful art. It's just different than I'm used to for a Jodorowsky story. It doesn't have that same like high sci-fi feeling to it that I'm used to. So in that sense, it's a bit startling. But narrative-wise, yeah, I really enjoyed this. I feel like a lot of times when I'm talking about Jodorowsky, it's hard not to just talk about the artist because he always worked with such great artists. But this is one where I really enjoyed Jodorowsky as a writer.